Anesthesiologists of Reddit, what was something you won't forget hearing from someone that was under?
I had an ovarian cyst removed a year ago and woke up from the anesthesia saying hand please. And making grabby hands with both my hands until the nurses finally came over and held my hands for about 5 minutes while I just smiled and tried to go back to sleep. I hadn't done that in a decade. I used to do it to my dad all the time as a kid to express that I wanted to hold his hand while I slept.
After an operation on a patient's neck, he woke up and yelled AHHHH, then grabbed his junk with both hands and was like, "Oh thank God it's still there," then immediately passed out again.
My boyfriend at the time had just gotten his wisdom teeth removed. On the ride home with his mouth full of gauze, he gets a call on his cell phone. He answered it and just starts talking away. Whoever it was on the other side could not possibly understand a word he was saying with all the gauze in his mouth. But man, he had a lot to talk about and they apparently didn't hang up. After about 5 minutes of this unintelligible phone conversation, he looks at me and says, "Oh, it's a robot," and gives me the phone. I put it to my ear, and the whole time it's been the Walgreens pharmacy automated notice simply stating his prescription is ready for pickup, playing on repeat. Probably for the best.
I ask a patient after surgery how he feels. He opens his eyes, stares me dead on and says, "With my fingers." Then he goes right back to sleep.
I woke up from gallbladder surgery, confused as to why my mom wasn't there. I was 18 and looking for my mom. The nurse informed me I had cussed out my entire family and they sent them home and put me on a no-visitor list, only for me to wake up at 2 a.m. with no memory, making them call my mom back. Another time I woke up and made horrifically inappropriate jokes. I told a nurse she was pissing me off because I didn't like the automatic blood pressure cuff. Another, I refused to listen to follow-up orders until I had a chicken sandwich. My negotiations were not met. I'm a real treat after anesthesia, but I get a lot of this done at the office. My mom works it so she can warn them, lol.
I'm an anesthesiologist. The best story was a 40-some-year-old woman for appendectomy, said while I'm giving the propofol to induce anesthesia. She said, "Oh, I don't remember it tasting like that before," slurred. I said, "What does it taste like, since propofol doesn't usually elicit a taste reaction?" She almost yelled "D's nuts," and was promptly under anesthesia thereafter. There have been other stories, but this one has the entire or staff rolling laughing for minutes after she was under.
My aunt got rushed to the hospital for abnormal heart rate, but it wasn't a heart attack or stroke, but her heart was going at like 200 beats per minute or whatever it was. They had to put her under so they could shock her heart back to normal. As they're taking her under, the doctor says something like, "Okay," in it goes, and she immediately quips with, "That's what she said." All the doctors and nurses busted a gut laughing and told my uncle when he got there. He just shrugged and said, "That's my wife for ya."
One summer I was home from college and my dad needed me to pick him up after his very first colonoscopy. He was nervous, so I got there early. The nurse called me back and asked me to help wake him up, as they were having some trouble. I go back and am making chit-chat. "Oh Dad, you've got those cool booties on." He raised his head a little bit to look at them, then yelled, "Booty call." He is a Presbyterian pastor. A moment I will treasure forever.
One time a male biology student in his early 20s with a stuck kidney stone, was being put under for surgery. Just as the anesthesiologist was pushing meds and telling me to count back from 100, I looked up at him in a drugged but focused gaze and said, "You're so pretty. You could be in movies." Then blackness. Anesthesiologist was like a grizzled 70-year-old, hunchback-looking guy with a lopsided grimace and more ear hair than head hair. Great doc though. Very last thing I remember hearing was the nurses cracking up laughing. It was a smallish medical community, and I knew some of the people there, so as a joke, somebody snuck his headshot into my chart. I like to think it was him gunning for a second career though. Edit, due to the rather sensitive nature of the surgery, he hit me with a wallop of midazolam on the way into the OR, so I was already pretty juiced by the time they started.
My husband had to undergo a colonoscopy, and when he came around he started aggressively grilling the staff about Abraham Lincoln. He isn't a historian or anything, he works as a business analyst and knows next to nothing about Abraham Lincoln. Bonus story, one time he took Ambien and got super fucked up. Initially told me that he couldn't walk up the stairs to bed because he was a transformer and his legs had turned to wheels. Finally got him upstairs and he made the observation that if peach trees could sing to each other like whales it would be beautiful. I bet they would sing Adele. Then he burst into tears.
I have no recollection of this, but according to my mom, when she met me in the recovery room after wisdom tooth extraction, I was very eager to tell her something, but my mouth was full of gauze. So they gave me a pen and I wrote something on the surgical bib. Hours later, when I was back in reality, she asked me what was with the meow meows, my son. I had no idea what she was talking about, so she showed me the bib. It said meow 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 meow, the meow mix theme.
My personal story. When I had my wisdom teeth out, I kept holding a fake camera up to my face saying you're beautiful and making clicking noises while I was under. I'm a professional photographer and my dental surgeon ended up booking a session with me a year later.
Apparently, when I had surgery to remove my Bartholin's gland, a gland at the entrance of the vagina that can get an abscess, they asked me how I felt as soon as I was awake. I said I felt like I got fucked by an elephant and then I wanted to hug everyone.
I had a guy, nefarious character, heavy drug use history, who got a bunch of ketamine, probably too much, in recovery from one of the other docs to help with severe pain after his abscess drainage. I was asked to check on him in an hour as the other doc had left for the evening. Went over and saw him in the K-hole drooling on himself but otherwise fine, so I left and came back an hour later. First thing he says to me is, "Why did you do that to me?" I asked him what he meant and he said, "You don't understand, I lived another man's life in there." I apologized and asked him, "How long do you think you were in there?" For reference, it had been something like an hour and a half or 2 hours since his trip began. I don't know, maybe 30 years. I was speechless. I apologized again, made sure he knew he was safe, made sure he wasn't hurting, and made damn sure he knew it wasn't me that did it to him. TLDR, patient time traveled 30 years in the K-hole.
Kind of on topic, when my mom woke up after having a stroke, the doctor asked if she recognized the people in the room. She got my sister's name right, called me my brother's name, and smiled real big at my stepdad and called him asshole.
How about the other way around? I took my mom for her surgery on her right shoulder and her anesthesiologist was this very dignified, solemn older Persian gentleman. My mom told him, "Just so you know, I wrote directions on myself to make sure you get it right." She was joking around, but she actually does this. Old battle-axe nurse habits die hard. He looked her straight in the eye and said deadpan, "Great. So let's get started on your left knee." Totally got her. It was great.
I once came out of anesthesia after an endoscopy, which can cause you to burp pretty much the whole day, and my fiancé asked, "How are you doing?" I misheard and answered as though she said, "What are you doing?" My answer was, "Little burps," said very confidently. I also started crying on the way home because I wanted one egg. I never crave eggs.
Patient here. Came out of anesthesia and heard Gaudier's Somebody That I Used to Know playing in the recovery room. I asked my so why they were playing it at like 10x the normal speed and the nurse just goes, "Okay, so she's not ready to go home yet, lol."
Not an anesthesiologist, but a story from my mom about me. While I was under, I had a double jaw surgery scheduled for April 21, 2016. The procedure was fine. I remember waking up halfway through it and getting more anesthesia. After the surgery ended, they put me into the hospital room to let the drugs wear off of me. I don't remember much of this time, so this comes from my mom, but she was sitting in the room with me, watching the news on the TV. I wake up and I'm quiet for a little bit before I start sobbing. My mom thinks it's because my mouth hurts. My mouth is wired shut, so I actively can't correct her with words, and have to try and write out, on paper, what I'm crying about. The news was broadcasting about Prince's death, and I was hysterical over the fact that I apparently killed Prince and that I had to turn myself in.
I was told after surgery I said I love dogs and I want to eat the Taliban.
My aunt, who notoriously despises fast food, old Mexican lady whose food is as good as it gets, woke up and looked at my uncle and said, "Are you the sexy man that's gonna take me to McDonald's?" If you knew her, you would know that she would never say that. She has never lived it down.
My husband woke up from anesthesia after a colonoscopy just after the doctor walked in. He didn't see the doctor and told me no blowjob for you, then fell back asleep and ripped a big fart. The doctor looked at me and busted out laughing. He said not to be embarrassed, people say the weirdest things, but this one he'd remember.
My mom woke up from dental surgery, and when we were leaving the surgeon's office, he gave her a goodie bag with floss and a toothbrush and stuff, and the whole way home she kept asking if she could eat the candy that the dentist gave her. Every time I told her there was no candy, she looked so heartbroken, like a little kid when their goldfish dies or something. Then we stopped at CVS on the way home and she wandered off. I found her in the candy aisle holding a giant bag of fun-sized candy, and when I told her to put it back on the shelf she dropped it on the floor and galloped away laughing at me.
As I put someone out for a colonoscopy one time, the patient said, "You're cute. Are you gonna see my butt?" Then she was out. Edit, for those of you asking, yes, for colonoscopies we typically use deep sedation. This is in the US. 99.9% of the time, this means propofol, the Michael Jackson drug. Most of us will give some lidocaine through your 4 first. This helps prevent the burning sensation in your 4 that propofol can sometimes give, and follow it right up with propofol to knock you out. Almost never need analgesics like fentanyl.
A little girl was going under, and she was holding her mother's hand. She reached out for my hand with her other, and as she was going out she joined mine with her mother's, then said, "You would be a nice daddy." I probably went beetroot red as I blushed.
I was under general anesthesia to get my gallbladder removed. As I was being wheeled back through the double doors there was a giant TV screen that listed the surgeries going on. I was way too loopy to actually read it, but I swear I saw elbowectomy and started hysterically laughing over the idea of removing an elbow and being left with a floppy arm. Apparently what I actually said was elbow jaloo and then passed out.
Apparently when I was going under I told the anesthesiologist, "Don't mess this up, I know where you work."
Not the anesthesiologist, but as a surgery tech working next to them, patient, woozily *, doc, will I still be able to integrate after this? Gas passer * integrate? Like what? Patient * like the sum of f, x, from a to b when the gas passer * pushes more milk of amnesia _
Had my wisdom teeth out. When I woke up I was so excited to get my now extracted teeth and keep them as a souvenir. The nurse said I couldn't. She wheeled me out to the front door, where my wife was waiting to load me into the car. She saw my disappointed face and asked, "What's wrong, honey?" I turned and pointed to the nurse and said through my gauze-stuffed mouth, "This fucking bitch won't let me keep my teeth." My stunned wife apologized and the nurse explained that it's fine, but they were a biohazard, to which I replied incredulously, "They were in my fucking mouth an hour ago." Edit, on a slightly related note, my MIL has promised me that I can have her titanium hip after her cremation for a shifter in my car. Love that woman.
A friend of mine was doing a type of spine procedure where they fixed part of a broken vertebrae under sedation. He said most people fall right asleep, but every now and then someone just won't fall asleep no matter how much for anesthesia they get. This guy that he was doing the procedure on got so talkative that he was just going on and on about his favorite fishing spots while he was having his broken vertebra fixed. My friend kept asking him if he was in pain or anything, but the guy was like, "I don't feel anything." Anyways, let me tell you about this place I bass fish. Guy had the whole procedure awake despite lots of anesthesia and was happy as a clam.